He's Howard Ibach, former copywriter and creative director and the author of 2 books on the creative brief.
And he's Henry Gomez, an ad agency strategist with 28 years of experience. Together, Henry and I are the Brief Brothers. We love talking about creative briefs, briefing, and advertising. Henry, we're back with another episode. Today we have Derek Walker. He is the owner of an agency called Brown and Browner. He was a panelist in our discussion a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to continue our conversation with him. Let's join it right now. Henry, we're back with another episode of the Brief Brothers, and I'm delighted to have back with us Derek Walker. He was part of our panel discussion a few weeks ago, and it was so fun having him that I reached out and said, "Hey, you want to come back and let's just have a one-on or two-on-one conversation." So Derek is a creative, and the basis of the panel discussion from a couple of weeks ago was to get creatives in a round table while Henry was traveling. Henry is a strategist, so we thought, well, while the cat's away, let's have the creatives have some fun, and we did. So, Derek, as I mentioned to you just a moment ago, we like to start off our conversations by asking our guests to tell us what was it about this industry that drew you to it, and give us a sense of the trajectory of your career.
Okay. Thank you for having me, first of all. Pleasure always to talk about advertising. I learned about advertising in the 9th grade. I was on the newspaper staff, and I wanted to
In
be
high
a great
school, high school
in high
newspaper?
school. Yeah. And one of the requirements was to sell $200 worth of ad space. And I wanted to be this great.
That was your point of entry. That you can be on the staff, but you got to sell. Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
And I was going to be a purist. I wasn't going to be an ad guy. I was going to be a journalist. I was going to write news stories. And I put off selling the $200 worth of ads the first 9 weeks, the second 9 weeks, the third 9 weeks. And my journalism teacher, David Knight, came to me and he goes, "I'm going to call your parents and tell them you are going to flunk newspaper staff because you haven't sold $200 worth of ads." And I was hot. I just was, you're a 9th grader, testosterone, everything. So the next day I went out and I sold some ads. I come back and I dropped these contracts on his desk, and it was $2,000 worth of ads. And I went back to writing, and he came back with a book, David Ogilvy on advertising, from the wonderful people who brought you Pearl Harbor, Jerry Delafamino. Oh gosh, there was one more book, and plus some design and copy book. He goes, "I'm not doing those ads. You have to do them." So I had to write the headlines and do rough layout. I found somebody to do the layout because I suck at art direction. And in that, he started feeding me articles about people in advertising. So then my 10th grade year, I sold, I think it was $9,000 worth of ads. My junior year, I sold 16,000, and I ended at 29,000 my senior year. So I was
were you not any good as a journalist? Did you like the way? Were you good as a journalist?
I was better as a journalist, but it was just so much fun. I mean, I didn't realize how much money I was making until he was like, "Well, thanks to Derek, we don't even have to sell any more ads. We're done for the year," my senior year. Because we put a paper out a month, every month, 16 to 24 pages, depending on the store. I mean, we were big advertising. The newspaper was our fifth sport. We had football, basketball, baseball, track, band, and then newspaper staff, all of them award winners. So got out of there and went to college as a journalism major, because the School of Journalism at the University of South Carolina has advertising under journalism. Did that, got out of this lovely dark-skinned, I was skinnier then, so I was really pretty, person, and found out that Nobody was going to hire me as a creative in advertising in '86. So somehow I ended up working at Toys R Us and Pizza Hut, both in the corporate office. I ended up in the corporate office of Pizza Hut, well, the Southeast region, which was out of Atlanta. And the same agencies that wouldn't hire me in Atlanta had to deal with me as a client.
Isn't that
So
ironic? Isn't that
yeah,
ironic that this so-called creative industry was so slow and reluctant, still to a large extent today,
yeah.
is still as undiverse as it is, and corporate America, and I'm not an apologist for corporate America,
Hmm.
and corporate America still has lots of lessons to learn, but had a tendency to embrace certain more liberal, more diverse things a little bit sooner. That's ironic. But you cut your
Yes,
teeth, you cut your teeth on some major brands.
yes. Radio Shack. I was internal at the Radio Shack. Nissan, Subaru, Johnson Controls, Master Lock, Sub-Zero refrigerators, Case Construction Equipment.
Wow.
Um,
On the marketing side?
no, working at agencies. I
Okay, so no, you were working
but
on those for those corporations, but in what capacity?
no, I worked in house for Radio Shack
Okay.
as a associate creative director.
Oh,
Um,
in-house, like an in-house creative department, or
we had a 200-person agency. We produced all those Terry Hatcher, Howie Long commercials for 10 years. Um, I got to see the negotiation on buying the rights to Marvin Gaye's music, What's Going On,
Mhm.
which is really cool. Got to negotiate contracts with Ving Rhames, Vanessa Williams, Shaq, Rick Fox, Daisy Fuentes, um, Alex Rodriguez. We were the first corporate sponsor for A-Rod when he got to the Texas Rangers. So it's sort of like I got trained on the client side first for 10 years. Then I went to Milwaukee and worked at Cramer-Krasselt, and that started me on the agency side. And then, of course, bad things happen and you end up things happen and we always lose a job, or some of us do. And I ended up at Radio Shack internally for 3 years. And
Look, I lost track of the number of times I got laid off, but it was
yeah,
always an opportunity, always an opportunity. You
Yeah,
know,
and
there
I,
there are
I
three there are three things that we have control over in our world. I believe in free will. But there are three things that we can control. We can control our choices.
mhm,
We can control how we react to the consequences of those choices, and then we have control over what we do about
yeah,
the
mhm.
results of those choices. So in advertising, you're going to get laid off. What do you do
Unless,
next?
yeah,
yeah,
I have a canned speech of 10 pontifications that I give to young students, and the 10th one is you're going to get fired.
Mm-hmm.
Like don't have any illusions about that. There's a million ways to die in advertising, and you're going to experience one of them several times. But it usually turns out pretty well.
Well,
yeah,
now
I think,
I was only fired once, and I was fired
oh,
for cause. I've been laid off many times
Well,
oh
because
yeah,
I use the expression broadly, meaning you could get
yeah,
laid off, you could get fired,
fired,
you could,
terminated.
yeah,
we're
whatever.
absorbed. I was also part of a merger. I came over to another agency I came over to Hoffman York in Milwaukee. You went to
Okay,
Cramer-Krasselt, and
yes.
I worked at Hoffman York. And I don't think I would have been hired. Tom Jordan would not have hired me straight out, but I came over as part of a merger as a design firm and hit it off pretty well with Tom.
Hmm.
So, it's just like, how do you deal with these? You know who Howard Thurman is?
I heard the name.
He's an African American preacher. He was the dean at Howard University, or was it Morehouse? And he used to say,
Morehouse, I think.
Morehouse. He used to say, um, fate, fate is the detritus, or the the stuff of our life that we have no control over. Destiny is what a person does with that
Mm,
detritus, with those decisions.
cool. I
And
like that.
that's what, it's like, You're going to get laid off. Okay, now what are you going to do?
And I, coming from corporate America, I was more equipped for the advertising layoffs and firings than my boss. So I'm like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to hit the points as far as we're not going to prolong this meeting. Go ahead and fire me. Get me out the door. But tell me what my severance is going to be, how long, what we're going to do. We're not firing you. We're laying you off. No, you're firing me anyway. I don't care. It's the same. Let's do it. But I just I don't even. It's so funny. My ex-wife jokes with me about my LinkedIn profile. She goes, "You don't even have the titles you had on there
I like your
because
LinkedIn
they."
profile.
Yes, thank you. Because it doesn't reflect the amount of responsibilities my bosses have given me. And here I am at Radio Shack as an ACD, and I spent more time in the C-suite than I should have. I mean, just talking about stuff. But that's also what Pizza Hut. My first presentation to a CEO of a Fortune 500 was, I think I was 22. And I had to explain, me and my partner, Brian East, had to explain why we were doing the things we were doing with delivery units in Georgia, and why our numbers were so well. Well, hey, and we went at it.
So what was the benefit, do you think, of starting your advertising career on the corporate side rather than the agency side?
I'm not a big fan of people talking about learning to speak business. I am a big fan of people understanding what motivates a client. And it's easy for me to, it helped me to see what motivates a client. I'm tickled when ad agencies promise ROI, because in my world, you can't, and there's nothing an ad agency can do to, hold on a second. Oh, I'm sorry, my phone is beeping in my ear. There's nothing you as an ad agency can do to impact the ROI of a big corporation. You can't. ROI is dependent on, for them, is dependent on a whole bunch of other factors. When people say, well, we impacted sales. Did you take over customer service? Did you have anything to do with the quality control of the product or the service offered? What marketing channels did you use to get the product to market? Tell me what you did. You know, I like it. So I'm more of a, I tend to be more blunt about it because it helped me to be more blunt.
I agree with you 90%. I'm with you 90% of the way. I think and they're legendary for this reason.
Yeah.
There are the legendary ad campaigns in which nothing else changed except the advertising, and a company either took off or took off again.
Yes, but in their figuring of success, if they hadn't been able to deliver the product on time, wouldn't have worked.
Oh no, of course. Listen, I always say, look, advertising is only one of the 4 P's of marketing. And it's only part of one of those 4 P's. It's not even the full P, right? Because promotion includes public relations and other things beyond advertising. So it's only half of one of the 4 P's, let's say. So I agree completely. What makes a company successful, but in terms of ROI on ad dollars, let's say, that it can exist. But I think, you know, we talk a lot in this podcast. The campaigns that I admire, like the ultimate driving machine for BMW, a brand that was nowhere, and put them on the map. The most interesting man in the world for
Okay, but go back to BMW. Let's go back to BMW for a second.
Yeah.
They were nowhere on the map, but they also produced a mighty fine car. they
Correct.
lived up to that.
The
It wasn't
product,
like, yeah,
the product, the
the
four
product had to
P's,
do that.
the product was there, right? They had a
Hmm.
distribution system with dealers who weren't happy with the advertising, by the
Yeah.
way. You know, pricing, they had a price strategy, they had a premium price strategy. But they weren't, people didn't know about these vehicles and didn't know the benefit of the vehicles. And the advertising changed that. Same with
Mhm.
And but
same
now
with
watch what happens.
Same with Dos Equis. It was a brand that had been in the market for over 20 years.
Yeah.
They had distribution. The product was fine. There was nothing wrong with the product. But the advertising put it into the public consciousness, and that did affect distribution, because suddenly their distribution became much broader, and it became the fastest growing import beer in the country. So it did affect the other P's. Eventually they
And
had to.
but now, you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm saying we do not impact ROI to the point that we drive it for the company. We don't
Correct.
drive it.
No, I that's why
And
I said I agree with you. I agree
yeah,
with you 90%. I think I think both clients and agency people overestimate what advertising can do, particularly when there are deep core problems in the other three P's. If your product's not good, or
yeah.
if your pricing strategy sucks, or if you don't have distribution, it's going to be really, really hard.
Well, that's why I
Well,
mean that's why I love these old sayings that I come across, and one of them is
mhm,
the best way to kill a bad product is with
it's
good
great
advertising.
advertising.
Yeah, people will try
And
it once.
look at, I don't disagree. I'm a huge fan of advertising. Let's clear that one up. So I'm there. My problem is that we come in and promise that we're going to impact their business.
Well, that Derek, that's why I want to back up and make an observation, ask a question. The observation is, I think a lot of us in the industry recognize that we cut our teeth and we pay our dues and we work our career in the ad agency world. And
Hmm.
then a lot of us on the creative side, even on the account side and the management side, say, well, then it's time for me to shift over to the client side. I want to cut back the hours, get higher pay. And what I'm hearing you saying is that, man, if more of us did it the other way around, we might really benefit, because all of a sudden I'm detecting very, very clearly that you got the lingo down. You can talk to the client in a way that a typical creative can't. Because
Yeah.
what we talk about is, oh, this is a beautiful color. It's going to make me feel great, and emotional connection, all of which have value, but it's not talking to the client in the language the client understands.
I give you a real quick example. I got hired at Falgren and ended up working on McDonald's. If you have never dealt with McDonald's franchises, you're missing an experience.
Henry.
I did that for 5 years.
Yeah,
I did that for
and
five
they are a
years.
special group.
Yeah.
They're sharp, aggressive, and everything.
A
So
lot of people don't realize that about an organization, especially like McDonald's. These are
mhm,
all independent businessmen.
yeah, and most of them are
They
millionaires.
and businessmen, and they are millionaires. They're very successful people. Most of them had success in some other domain
Hmm.
before they became franchisees. That's the way they acquired the capital to become franchisees. Um, they're very smart, and they understand their customers and the business.
Yeah,
They're not marketers, but they can be convinced.
yeah.
You just have to, and uh, you're actually bringing back some of the fondest memories of my career. Was, we used to go, if you worked at Falgren, then you were working on the local, right, the local advertising.
We were the largest group of franchisers for a period.
Mm-hmm.
Before um, they reconsolidated and did some things,
Yeah.
we had over, I think we had close to 150, 200 franchisers.
Yeah. So
We, yeah.
just for people to understand the size and scope of the monster that was McDonald's. Um, at the time that I worked on it, which was from 2008 to 2013, they spent about $1 billion in advertising a year. About half of it at the national level and about
Mm-hmm.
half of it at the local level. You were working on those local. I was on we were the Hispanic agency for the national side of it.
Mm-hmm.
So we would go 3 times a year to Chicago for these multi-day meetings called OPNAD, the Owner Operator National Advertising Committee. And these were like, of these franchisees, these guys were the best of the best, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were chosen to administer, they were elected by their peers to administer and supervise the spending of that $500 million that was
Yeah.
spent at the national level. And I imagine that at the local, but there was a lot of
Okay.
bonding time in those multi-day meetings, at the bar after the meeting, at the lodge in Chicago. It was really, really a great time. And I did learn a lot from them.
We were one of the first first regional or franchise group ad agencies to be invited. We did Welcome to My Restaurant, which became Welcome to My McDonald's. It was the first time McDonald's took a regional campaign and tried to make it a national campaign. And the story, I can tell you real quick. So we're in the room, we're presenting these ideas, and one of the franchisers, to his credit, was drilling us. I mean, you just drilling us. And my boss looks at me and he goes, deal with him. Deidre Galsky goes, deal with him. Okay. I said, first of all, what stores do you have? Oh, I know your stores. Because what we had done, which had never been done for Fahlgren before, was we took 2 weeks and toured as many of the McDonald's in our we went franchisee, not every store, but as many franchisees as we could. I was like, oh, okay. So your store, although the average time on the drive-through should be less than 1:30, I was sitting there for like 3 minutes, man. And never saw your managers. And I mean, I just ran it down the way I would a Pizza Hut. And he looks at me, he goes, you've done food before. I was like, yeah, the Hut. He goes, oh, you're a Pizza Hut guy. I'm like, yeah. And then the dialogue is that. I was like,
Yeah.
so this campaign is based on the fact that I didn't see your managers. They don't feel like they have ownership to make decisions because you got so many manuals there. And we laid out our case and they allowed us to do things that you wouldn't have thought could be done. We use real managers in our commercials. Every unit that year in our region.
What time frame are we talking about? Like what years was this?
Oh, I got to Timberland McLean in 1999. So 96 to 99,
Okay.
roughly. We did cut out post. When every manager came on the clock, they pull out their life-size sign that says, welcome to my McDonald's. And you knew to look for them if there was a problem. And they had their name on there because they had been allowing managers to stay back in the back offices. And I'm like, your managers don't even know what's going on at the counter. And my boss was tickled because when we got back, we debriefed him for like 2 hours. The team, the McDonald's team and the CEO. So here we have a couple minutes with the McDonald's folks. And my boss was like, give them some of what you gave us. And they're sitting there going, oh, because he said something to the effect, you advertising people don't get it. And I'm sitting there going, oh. And my boss was like, get him. And I'm like, so I do get it. And I looked at him, I go,
Derek, this is a lot to unpack, and I want to ask you some things about this. This is great because Henry and I, we started this whole podcast, as you know, because we like to talk about creative briefs, and we've dissected every aspect of a brief in detail as a way to help people write a better brief. And one of the things we've talked about regarding who is your target audience is how do you figure that out? How do you go and learn who your target audience is. And I'm looking at you here today, Derek, and I'm seeing here's a creative who doesn't just know his audience, he has visited his audience, he has quizzed the audience, and he's called the client on a misunderstanding of the client's own awareness of what his people are doing. You know, I like to talk about this thing called the Capodastro bar, where the copywriter goes to the manufacturer and talks to an old fart and learns something about the product that he's trying to sell that no one else told him about. You've done that. You know, you've done the field work that a brief writer needs to do. And God, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on the briefs that you've probably seen over the years.
I think let me answer real quick. I think the visits used to be more standard.
Yeah,
We used to encourage people to get out and visit the client, even if the brief was written. The strategy was sort of there, because remember, American agencies didn't adopt the strategy position, but much later than the British did.
Right.
So account service and creatives used to carry some of that strategy water. But we just encourage people to shop our clients, to go out and not with the name tag or the VIP tour. Take the real tour. And
they're like that TV show where the boss goes out and pretends to be a worker to see what it's like in the trenches.
Undercover boss.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I came at Pizza Hut, I had the tour stores. And I learned quick when I had my Pizza Hut tie and my badge and my striped shirt. And
they treat you differently.
Yeah. So what we started doing is dressing down and going to the stores that we were having trouble with. And when you realize when you don't have that badge on, it's a whole different experience.
When I do training for creative brief workshops, back in the day when I did it, you know, in person, I still do the occasional in person. Mostly it's virtual now, but I still encounter a lot of people, younger people who have brief writing responsibilities and briefing responsibilities for the creatives, and even the creatives are far less eager, are more reluctant to actually see the product or the service in action.
Or try it.
Right.
Lord help you if you put a vegan on McDonald's. I mean, think about the lens they see the client through. You know, I'm not a big McDonald's fan except for their fries. Their fries may be the most awesome fries on the planet. In fast food, there's some fine dining that can do better fries. But if you're a vegan and you're assigned to this account, you can't taste 99.999% of their food.
Well, if you're a vegan and you're assigned to this account, you would be doing yourself a service by saying, I need to recuse myself. Are you honest enough to do that? You know?
Yeah.
It's like if you're a non-smoker and you become a creative for a tobacco company, it's like you have no principles. The old saying, principles only matter when they cost you something, right?
Yes.
Well, would you agree? I'm sorry to interrupt, but would you agree with me when I was getting at before that it would not be a bad idea for creatives to cut their teeth at least much earlier in their career on the client side?
Oh yeah. I don't know if you remember Paul Council at Cramer-Krasselt.
Well, I never worked there. I worked there. I know
but you're in the city.
Yeah.
As a CEO, he used to require new clients to meet with the CEO of the new client. He also required the contact person, because this is back in the early 90s, so we didn't have CMOs, as many CMOs as we had directors of marketing, dating myself. So they would spend a week at the agency as an employee in the creative department, working with the creatives, getting a feel for how the process worked. So when we came up and when they said, well, we need this tomorrow, we called it Agency 101. Now they got away from it, but think about what that did to the relationship that the director of marketing or CMO, which is what we call them today, spent a week at the agency, not as a VIP, but as a grunt in the trenches, working with the creative team on his account or her account. And it changes that perspective.
Yeah.
It's not enough that the young people get out and do this. I think a new creative director or a new ECD or whatever you want to call the person on any account should spend some time with the client beyond the tours. The tours are always clean and flawless. Nobody loses a finger in a factory.
Yeah, how many ECDs at a Chicago shop are going to go to Iowa and spend a day on the farm?
Exactly. But imagine what that says to the client if you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
So you were at Cramer-Krasselt for how long, Derek?
about almost 2 years.
Okay, and where did you go from there?
Falgren
Okay.
in Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, down with Timberland McLean in Dallas. Shortest stay ever. One day, once the NDA stop, I can talk about that. Chiat Day in Las Colinas. I was working on Nissan and I forget the diesel company diesel trucks. And then I went to Barry Brown. Oh, another story. I worked there for 2 years. Regime change, got laid off, and went to work at Radio Shack. But Barry Brown was an agency that was shuttered. I can't say the word because the COO embezzled nearly $11 million of the client's money.
Ouch.
Oh yeah, that's a story for another time. I mean, they took Quaker Oat. He took most of Quaker Oats' money, like $7 or $8 million, and killed himself. Well, they found a body on the ranch. His uncle identified the body. They released the body, had it cremated before they did any DNA testing. So they're not sure. But it was enough damage that the agency was shut down. Left Radio Shack and went to IMC Square, where I got all the digital exposure I wanted because they had 13 Procter & Gamble accounts. They had Diet Coke, they had M&M, they had Norwegian Cruise Line. They had a ton. They were a hot digital spot. And I watched them run that agency into the ground. So in 2008, this marvelous thing called a recession happened. And I said, hey, I could do bad by myself. Let's open an agency. What an idiot move. But anyway, there I am.
Well, as I recall from our conversation in the panel discussion a couple of weeks ago, you had some very strong views about AI. You had some very strong views about the quality of advertising today versus back in the day. And I wanted to follow up and give you a chance to give you a larger canvas to talk about that. And it's not so much, we tussled a little bit back and forth. We agreed and disagreed about a couple of things, but it wasn't that fascinated me. What fascinated me the most was the passion that I heard coming from you about the work. And I think, we've had the pleasure, Henry and I've had the pleasure of talking with a lot of very successful and accomplished creatives and strategists and CEOs. And that comes out. That comes out in most of them. You had a different path. And yet I'm admire and are fascinated by that passion. Where did that come from? What was it about doing really good work? Where did that come from for you?
My parents. My dad used to say, I don't care if you be a garbage man, but be the best damn garbage man you can be. If that's what makes you happy, be the best damn garbage man you can be. And to his credit, my parents didn't understand what a copywriter was. or
I don't think any parent does.
no, but he would defend my right to want to be a copywriter with every fiber of his being. When family members like, you need to get a good, when you get out of college, get you a good government job. My dad said, that boy's going to write copy, and it was that tone that I can't say that to an aunt or a grandparent. But, that's when the parent bristles up and protects the cub. And he's like, no, leave him alone. He has a path. My mom was just as fierce about it. So either both of them were so supportive about it, because this was the dream, that you find something you really love and you can really be good at and you can make a living off of, and do it. Now, I fortunately landed at Cramer-Krasselt when Cramer-Krasselt was an amazing shop, still amazing shop. They had just won a Kelly for they won a Kelly for Johnson Controls, and they had placed in they had two Pats, Pat Pritchard and Pat Knapp, and two copywriters named Pat, and both of them placed in the Mercury, the radio competition. So you drop me into this with the backing of what my parents had taught me, and their level of commitment to quality work. And it offends me when people go, it's creative for creative sake. Nobody sets out to do that. What they're sitting there going is, I can make so many people smile with this, or I can make somebody cry with this. And what's lost in the translation from the creatives to the client is, the more people feel about this work, the more engaged they are with it. And I guess that comes from the client side for me. I understand we can show a Pizza Hut pizza that's real pretty. And I'll put it out to the universe, but pizza is missing the thing. Eating pizza alone is probably the biggest crime against humanity that you can do. I'm sorry. Pizza is not a food to eat alone.
Uh-oh.
And what they show is never about how pizza brings people together. I'm sitting there looking at it going, you could own the table. We take back the table with with pizza. It's that kind of thinking. And people go, well, that would be an award winner. Yeah, fuck if it wins an award. Excuse my language. I guess I care.
You can't say fuck on our podcast.
Oh, copulate. I'll clean it up. I gives no copulation.
No, you can't say fuck on our podcast.
Right? I get it. I got you. I'm right here. But I think the other part is, and Henry, it might be a little different for you, but as a Black person, this was not an easy road for me. There are a lot of people that didn't believe a Black man could be a copywriter. I have a boss that said that to me. So somehow and somewhere, and I was talking to another Black creative today about this. Our generation was tough because we came to work in a hostile environment sometimes. And we're chasing our passion and our dream, but we got to hold off all that crap. Think about it. I'm juggling with one hand. Imagine if I could free this other hand up because I didn't have to deal with the crap. And so you sort of hide in the work. I mean, I'm a creative out of the 90s. Do you know what kind of work was being pumped out of Minnesota and San Francisco and Seattle and Portland and Richmond? And I mean, the hotbeds of advertising weren't New York and Chicago. They're the kings. but small markets were pumping out work. You went, oh my God, who did that? And it wasn't who did that so I could copy it, AI. It was who did that so I can raise my game. You know, there's a there's a line from the Boondocks. I pick my lines. I don't pick them from books. I pick them from TV. And
Isn't that a
one of the
cartoon? Was that
yes,
also a
it's an
cartoon?
animation cartoon.
Yeah, yeah.
And the grandson says to the grandfather, "Game recognizes game, Grandpa, and you looking awfully unfamiliar now." And the idea being just that, you know, when we were competitive with each other, it wasn't ugly and nasty. It was professional competitiveness. Agencies wanted to beat Konecki Kennecky. They wanted to be Hoffman York. They wanted to be Cramer-Krasselt. In the city, we went hard at each other.
Mm-hmm.
But we played basketball in the park down by Elsa's where you get the giant pork chop sandwich. Oh, in the middle of downtown. So it was a balance. And we've lost a lot of that, you know? The market, you could attack, I can attack somebody in Milwaukee, but I wasn't about to let somebody from Indiana come and talk crap about the Milwaukee market. We family, you know, but we're competitive. We've lost some of that. We were a community. So when you're a community, people would call me up. One of my art directors got a call from Stan Richards when he was at Timberland McLean.
Stan Richards of the
the
Richards Group.
Group.
Stan Richards. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Just to tell that art director how much he enjoyed the art direction of a campaign. That's unheard of today. I'm sorry.
Well,
I hope I answered your question.
No, you did. You did. And you expanded on, which I appreciate. You know, it's the talk about community, but you know, I was curious to know where that came from. We all have different stories, but I think there's a common thread among people who are committed to our industry that it's about the work.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, my point during the panel discussion was I disagree. We've had Greg Benedict on our show way back, and he's the guy who does this, oh, great advertising, how I miss you. And then he's got whatever the Roman numeral is. And my contention is, yeah, the advertising was great back in the day, but there's still great advertising. And I think it hasn't gone away. And if I recall correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, Derek, you disagreed with me. You thought that
I totally disagree with you.
Yeah, the quality of the work has not maintained itself over the decades.
No, we are less students of advertising.
Well, I agree with that part.
And if we're less students of advertising, then how can we maintain the quality?
So you don't think that the quality of the work is as good today as it was 20, 30 years ago?
No. You know why? Because we have no respect for TV and radio and print. And if you don't have respect for it, you can't emulate it. And if you can't emulate it,
is there?
No. Direct mail.
Yeah.
And technically to me, emails are direct mail.
By another means.
Yeah. So why are you as a copywriter sending me an email with a weak ass subject line and expecting me to open the email? Why are you as an art director or a designer doing a social media post that's god ugly based on the principles of print design? And then you expect me to say, oh, that's great work. No, that's shit. I get that there's in the world, there's no obligation for there to be greatness at all times. There just isn't. We say that about baseball. Is baseball as great today as it was, say, 20 years ago? Some of them. But look at the level of pitching and talent. You could bring them forward. The NBA, people go back and forth about it. We are under no obligation to have great. It's an honor to have great work. And I'm saying if you don't put in the effort to study what great work is, and I mean just across the board, then how do you expect for it to be great?
Well, that part I agree with you 100%, because people in our industry who are responsible for judging the work of creatives, when we are given a brief and, whether they're given 20 minutes or 2 weeks to do the work, we present the work. I'm always leery of what level of sophistication are the people sitting around the room who are judging my work in terms of their knowledge of the context. Do they know the competitors, what the competitors are doing? Do they know what the industry is doing? Do they know what wins awards? And I'm not just concerned about the one show and the Clios. I'm talking about the Effies, the ones that have won awards, that have actually, as you said, moved the needle. And too many people, in my training, I've asked the question, can you name 5 campaigns that have won awards for effectiveness? And people are guessing. It's like, well, I think that campaign this, it's like, maybe this, they can't do it. So you're sitting in judgment of my work, even though I'm not maybe doing, $1 million campaign, but you're still in judgment of my work, but you don't know context at all. You have no context to compare what I've just presented to you. So yes, in that regard, I would agree with you. We have a history of not knowing the history of our business.
And
but I still think that
when was
if
the
you
last
were,
time you cried at a piece of advertising?
I think there's been some PSAs. It's been a couple of
Is
years, but it's been some PSAs that I saw that were good. Henry and I used to do, we don't do it much anymore, but we used to do a creative review.
You can go through the 90s, and every year in the 90s, there was a lot of work that hit you in the feelings. We've gotten arrogant with digital. Our mistake was just pawning, and it's self-inflicted. When digital started, and I know Henry's got to go, and I'm sorry, Henry, I'll make this quick. When digital got started, we pawned it off on people we didn't want at the agency. And they went away bitter at us elitists. So they told clients, you don't need headlines, you don't need art direction. You don't even need a concept behind the work, because digital will deliver it for you. And we were in no position to address that concern. And it has grown and festered. And what we have are banner ads nobody opens. We have emails nobody visits. Websites that could be so much more but are less. I don't hate digital. My thing is, I'm watching us with digital. It's like watching a caveman club something to death with an M16. If he'd only turn it around, the little short end would kill it a lot quicker. If we continue to fool ourselves that this isn't good work, then we can't see why CMOs have a turnover so high. Brand loyalty doesn't even exist. And you got advertising people talking about there's no such thing as brand loyalty. What kind of crack are they smoking? I will not buy any ketchup but Heinz. That's it. So we have allowed so much of I'm too cool for advertising. I don't watch TV. I don't listen to radio. I only read books, but I'm on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn. See, you're lying. You do a lot more and YouTube. To me, YouTube is a TV channel.
Yeah.
So if you want to stand out on YouTube, if you put a video on YouTube, you've made a commercial, a TV commercial. So shouldn't you make you should make a damn good TV commercial. And you got more time than I had when I had 30 seconds, because 60s were rare. So I think I would love for the work to be better. I want the work to be better, because our salvation is in the body of work. When the work is better, the clients get better results. When the clients get better results, we get better compensation. When we get better compensation, we can retain and train and grow our people. It's all interconnected.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it.
you're right that it's all interconnected. It's also a lot more multidimensional. Like I think we've talked a lot about the splitting up of the media component from the creative component within ad agencies, stuff that was done by people like Sir Martin Sorrell, um, which
Sachi.
yeah, and which basically ended up it, it made it so that now creative was priced the way we price lawyers, right? Like it's by
Mm-hmm.
the hour. It's so before you the creative was kind of thrown in, like you had a giant media budget, the creative was thrown in, so the agencies wanted to differentiate themselves based on their creative. Now it's like you go into a pitch, and clients are also responsible because
Mm-hmm.
they buy creativity the way they buy paper clips, and buying creativity is buying an intellectual product. It's not the same thing as buying paper clips. Um, and even the lawyer example isn't a great one, because if you have a case and you're going to go litigate, you're going to pay top dollar for the best litigator, because you
Mm-hmm.
know that there's a difference between an $800 an hour attorney and a $200 an hour attorney. The $800 an hour attorney can charge that much because he's got the track record of winning for his clients. So I think there's a, everything you're saying is right, but there's also a deeper economic complexity to it, in terms of things that the industry has done to itself, but also things that I think were eventually going to be inevitable, because you know in the golden age of advertising, a lot of the clients were privately held companies,
Yeah.
and they didn't have to report earnings every 90 days. Now everything is public. You have to everything is short term. The goals are all of the long term goals are gone, and everything is short term goals. And when you do that, what do you lose? You lose long term brand building efforts, the efforts that make you feel more emotional about a brand, even when you're not in the market for that
Mm-hmm.
particular category. The point is, the day that, I don't have a car, but the day I buy a car, I'm going to need to have insurance for that car. And I'm going to know certain companies based on, but now everything is like drive right now. And so you mentioned digital. That's another one where kind of the media part of it mucked it up, right? Everything is like
Yeah.
uh programmatic, computers buying that. There's programmatic fraud. There's like it, so it's all of the none of these issues is single dimensional. Like they're all overlapping.
Oh, but hear me out. Nike is showing us that the world will reset. Nike did everything you're talking about. They went away from all of what they used to be. It cost the CEO his job because he was doing, oh, we don't need to do brand. We can go straight to consume, direct to consumers. And it blew up on them. And they lost the lead. And the Nike folks went, oh no, this is unacceptable. See, I think when clients get hit hard enough,
Well,
they're gonna.
there's always a pendulum that swings.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not related to advertising, but it's related to marketing. I have a friend from high school who owns a sporting goods store. It's called Central Sporting Goods here in Miami, and it's like in the middle of Little Havana, old school independent sporting goods store. And they had carried Nike, I'm not Nike, Converse for 30 years. And Nike acquired Converse, and they decided they didn't want to deal with independent mom and pops anymore. They were only going to sell
Mm-hmm.
direct or to like the giant accounts. And those are the kind of things that you're talking about, which
Yeah.
ultimately guts a brand, because those kids that walk into that store every day, you know, they maybe don't get a chance to walk into the other stores where Nike is sold,
Yeah.
or where Converse is sold, and so you're cutting off your nose to spite your face, you know, chasing the almighty dollar. But ultimately it's going to cost you dollars, because there's going to
Oh
be a
yeah.
generation of inner city kids whose only access was to the mom and pop sporting goods store, who never got to know your brand.
Well, look at the collaboration. I'm a big shoe. I'm a big Adidas fan. I have 6 pairs of Adidas Lego shoes. Really cool. To me, they're cool. They mean nobody else, but the kids love them when I'm wearing them. It's amazing to see young kids go, "Are those Lego shoes?" Because they have little Legos on the side as the 3 stripes. Adidas, in their infinite wisdom, let that deal elapse, and Nike picked it up. And the first thing Nike did was was a Nike Lego shoe, a real Lego shoe for Air Force Ones or whatever, Force Ones. And there's the waiting list, and they're selling off the sale. And I'm looking at Adidas going, why didn't you do a Run DMC shoe, Lego shoe? And to your point, that thinking, it takes somebody else to come up with it for the rest of because a lot of people are followers, not leaders. They have to see it from somebody else and go, holy crap, we missed an opportunity. Where's the next opportunity? I missed the great wars. When Coke and Pepsi were warring, the whole world was creative. McDonald's and Burger King is soon going to be McDonald's and Chick-fil-A. That Chick-fil-A monster is something to watch. They're only open 6 days a week, and they're already number 4 or 5 in fast food, and they're not even in every market. I love the show Foods That Made America, Built America, because they tell the story, to your point about powerful advertising. Bud Light. Wait a minute, which one's left taste?
Miller Lite.
Miller Lite.
Miller Lite.
Yeah, tastes great.
They
less
introduced
filling.
they introduced the category.
Yeah.
The only brand that I know of that had a dual-minded proposition. Tastes great, less filling. Nobody thinks about that.
And
it's the exception that proves the rule.
But it was called diet beer at first.
Diet beer.
And it did, and guys wouldn't drink diet beer. So they finally settled on, they came around to Miller Lite.
I would argue that the proposition is actually single-minded.
Okay, we can disagree on that.
But because the purpose of the light beer is the less filling. The taste great is just a reassurance that you're not sacrificing.
It was beer. A battle, though. It was a battle, and it was the battle between these celebrities and others that made it a great campaign. It was 2 ideas fighting against each other, and that's what makes it work. So it's the exception that proves the rule, that it's usually one thing that makes it easier to sell a product. And Miller Lite, I think they had this conflict. How do we do this? Well, let's just do them both.
But as a strategist, I would say, where's the skepticism going to be in a brand new beer that's supposed to be lighter than regular beers? It's going to be that it's going to taste like shit. So they created this straw man argument between the taste great people and the less filling people. But what they're selling is a beer that's less filling. They just needed to make sure that regular beer drinkers didn't think that it was going to be piss water. So in a way, it was genius to create that.
Derek Henry and I haven't had
Mama and Daddy are fighting, and I don't want to. And I want to go. I want to go watch TV.
We started this whole podcast because we had a disagreement about something. We used to disagree a lot in the first 6 months, and now we don't disagree about anything except today. So congratulations.
I'm going to tell. This is the homework for both of you. Watch the episode of Foods That Built America, the Miller Lite story. Yeah, I'm not getting in this. I've seen the story. So I'm going, okay, because it tasted like crap. They didn't, Miller bought, begins with a Y. I didn't know it was always an American beer. It's got an Asian name.
Yingling?
Yes. And
I was thinking
Yingling.
Qingdao, but that's a Chinese beer.
Yeah, it was Yingling. I'm butchering the name. And they had a diet beer. And the diet beer tasted so horrible that Miller, after buying them, had to reformulate the beer. It's an interesting story. I'm trying to figure out which one of you where this lands, if it's 2 or 1. So I'm gonna go back and watch the episode. And y'all settle this and let me know. But
Well, on that note, I think we should wrap up our conversation. And
yes,
I
sir.
think
Sorry, we
the nature of what we've been talking about and your take on things, Derek, proves to me that this conversation could go on and on and on. But in any event, Derek Walker, and you know what? Tell us the name. You have your own agency. What is the name of your
Yes,
agency?
the name of the agency is Brown and Browner. I'll give you this real quick. Ed Wax was retiring from the 4As. And he said the world is turning, one of his retirement speeches, he said the world is turning brown and browner. Either we learn to speak to it or get left behind. And when I opened the agency, I didn't want to name it Walker and Jones, Jones and Walker. Jones is a lighter skinned Black person and I'm a darker skinned Black person. So I went, hey, brown and browner. And it reminds me that we have to speak to everybody. That's why we go lowercase b. They're not proper nouns. It's brown and browner. Because the world's turning now.
Okay. Derek Walker, thanks for joining Henry and me on the Brief Brothers.
Thank you, guys. You guys have a good day.
Okay. Good stuff, Henry.
Good stuff, Howard.
He's Henry Gomez.
He's Howard Ibach, and together we're the Brief Brothers. Till next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.